Those of you just getting here, we'll be starting in a couple minutes. We're going to wait for a few more people to show up and hopefully figure out some audio issues we're having. But yeah, sit tight and we'll start in a couple minutes. All right, we can go ahead and get started. We've had a few audio issues getting started, but we'll hopefully be able to figure those out along the way. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for Succeeding at Crowdfunding. This is a joint venture between Future Founders along with C, Self-Employment in the Arts, and the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, CEO. So we're excited to have you guys here. If you all have not used Bigmarker before, there is a chat option that goes to everybody in the group. You can type in questions, comments, high fives, encouragement, whatever along the way. Or there's also a Q&A section, and we will actually be answering some questions later, provided that audio things work out all right. But we've got Steve and Callie with us, and they'll be answering some questions that you all have, hopefully. So as we go along, if you have questions, feel free to type them in there. We'll kind of just accumulate them, and we'll take them one by one towards the end. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat window too. Anyway, welcome once again. This is going to be pretty informal. We'll start with kind of some introductions of myself, Steve and Callie, a super brief intro into Future Founders, and then we'll kind of jump into the meat of crowdfunding. Just so you know, this is being recorded. We're going to have this file later so we can repurpose it and post it online for those who weren't able to make it. But just so you know, everything you say and do could be used against you in a court of law, But anyway, my name is Ethan. I work at Future Founders as the coordinator of startups, and so I'm excited to be here leading this. I get to work with some awesome entrepreneurs like Callie and Steven, but I actually did participate in an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign this past summer, which was actually unsuccessful. And I'll share a little bit about what happened with that and what you can learn from our mistakes, because it was really a great learning experience. Callie and Steven will be giving some tips later, But for now, I'll just tell you that Callie is the co-founder of Collegiate Designs. It's a jewelry design studio dedicated to holistic themes in wearable design. They have a super cool first product, which you can buy now at collezoedesigns.com, called the Mudra. It's a piece of jewelry that goes between your thumb and forefinger that helps relieve stress, migraines, that kind of thing, because of the pressure point that it applies pressure to. So she and her sister, Ariana, raised, I think, over $10,000 on Indiegogo this summer. And so that's really cool, and we've had the privilege of working with them. Stephen is a self-employed entrepreneur and the founder of the Bindle Stick, which is a practical tool that redistributes the weight of heavy loads, often used, in his case, for groceries or his own tool bag, as he's a handyman. But it uses the concept of a fulcrum and a lever to help you carry heavy things. So Stephen funded his first, actually, global production run of the Bindle Stick on Kickstarter last year. So we're excited to have both of them, and hopefully their audio and microphones will be working later on. So start thinking of questions now that you want to ask these two, or myself. We'll be happy to answer those as they come. But real quick, before we get into things, let me introduce a little bit about what Future Founders does. So Future Founders is a nonprofit. We're based in Chicago, but we do have a national reach. We believe that every youth can become an entrepreneur. So we work with kids. We've worked with over 30,000 kids and youth and college students since our founding almost 10 years ago. And we work with kids as young as 5th grade through our Discover program all the way through college, which is our startup program that this is a part of. Specifically for our startup program, we kind of have 3 main offerings. The first of which, if you're a student or work at a university or have even just the slightest interest in entrepreneurship, our ePass newsletter is a really cool thing that you should all sign up for. You can go to futurefounders.com/startup, as you can see, and it's a curated combination of events and resources and webinars like this that we send out every week that are specifically related to entrepreneurship. So that might mean an event in the city of Chicago. It might mean a speaker giving a really cool webinar. It's all kinds of things. We get free tickets to the conferences all the time. So if you're not signed up for that, definitely it's worth signing up for. Second thing is our fellowship, which Callie and Steve are actually both a part of, if you can find their pictures in here really quick. But our fellowship is a year-long cohort of the top collegiate entrepreneurs in the country. And so our second cohort is actually wrapping up in December, and we are accepting applications for our third cohort in 2017. And those applications must be turned in by November 17th. So definitely check out futurefounders.com/fellowship if you're a collegiate entrepreneur or know a collegiate entrepreneur who would be a good fit. And finally, we have our U.PITCH competition. Last year, we had Damon John as a guest at our National Elevator Pitch Competition and Showcase. And so this year, it's going to be November 10th at 1871 in Chicago. And applications are open now through October 20th. So if you're a student or know students who have startups or an idea for a startup, you can tell them to apply by October 20th at futurefounders.com. All it takes is a 90-second video and a few questions. But they have a chance to win $10,000 for their startup or idea. That's a little bit about Future Founders. Again, if you want more information, definitely let me know. I'll have my contact information at the end of this presentation. But anyway, let's get into the meat of crowdfunding. So some takeaways that we'd like for you to hopefully take away from this presentation, this webinar is, first of all, what is crowdfunding? It may sound like an easy question, but some people think that crowdfunding is something that it's not, and some people think that it does certain things that it does not. And so we'll get into what actually is crowdfunding, how did it start, and what can it do for you. Second of all, probably the more interesting thing is what does it take to run a successful crowdfunding campaign? Of the 3 panelists here, we've got 2 who have run successful ones and 1 who's been a part of one that's unsuccessful. And so we'll talk about the nitty-gritty things that hopefully can get you on your way to a successful campaign. And then third, how can you get started? So, first of all, what is crowdfunding? So in the olden days, or you might say as a typical entrepreneur, there's kind of a standard way that you would have to start your business. You have somebody that has an idea, and they invest some of their own money or some money they've borrowed to develop a product or service. They then sell that product or service to a customer who then gives them their money back and a premium so that the entrepreneur can suddenly take that and make more products to make more money. So that results in kind of this growth curve of slowly growing, getting faster and accelerating until you kind of hit that critical mass where you can take off and fly. The problem is this takes a long time. If anyone has self-funded a project before, it doesn't happen overnight. It can take months or years. And along the way, you might run out of cash because people aren't as interested in your product as you first thought. Or worse, if it's actually a really good idea, bigger companies, bigger dogs are going to catch on and throw their resources and their money at the idea, and they can beat you to it. Or finally, it can take so long that the need vanishes. And this can happen especially with technology or innovation, where technology is moving so fast that if you can't get your product off the ground at the beginning, then you're going to lose your small window. Or alternatively, you can go the route of an investor or someone who has a lot of money to give you to fund your project. They will give you their money and expecting a return, but you get to make a bunch of products right at the beginning and sell those. And that basically accelerates you to a point further along the curve in a very short amount of time, which is great, except it's going to cost you. And so in the case of an investor, it'll often cost you equity. They'll want 10%, 20%, 30% of your company for using their money. If they don't ask for equity, you're going to have to give up debt, or you'll just have to repay that, which may be a good solution. Some of these are good solutions for some companies, but oftentimes as an entrepreneur, you don't want to tie yourself up right at the beginning. But finally, it's also going to cost you control, and this is the biggest thing, is as soon as you add on investors, other parties that have a vested interest in your product, you have to answer to them as far as the direction of the company. So this is not an ideal scenario. But then comes along crowdfunding, and you can get the same benefit as having an investor, and yet you don't have to have the tie down that you have there. So in crowdfunding, you draw upon the resources of a bunch of people who are willing to hand you their money, not because they want a return on investment, but because they simply want your product. This means that it's a pre-order, not an investment. They don't want any of your money with interest. They just want the product, plain and simple. And really, it's just accelerating your way along that growth curve, but you get to hold on to your equity, you get to hold on to your debt, and you get to maintain complete control. So if you crowdfund your idea, you have the opportunity to have the best of both worlds. Crowdfunding began, some would argue, a few hundred years ago, but kind of the major instance in the modern world was in 1997. And a British rock band funded their U.S. tour by raising $60,000 online, kind of at the beginning of the popularity of the internet. But then 2008 rolls around, and Indiegogo actually was founded before Kickstarter as a way for people to donate to different projects. And it could have been a charitable cause or a business idea, but it first provided that window. Then in 2009, Kickstarter came along and kind of introduced the topic of, or the ability to add rewards to a campaign. So if anyone has supported a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, usually there are rewards that are tied in. If you give $25, you get this t-shirt. If you give $50, you get a t-shirt and an autograph, and it goes on and on. And that's a really cool way to provide incentives for people to give you money. It was estimated in 2015 that $34 billion was raised through crowdfunding means, which is just absolutely insane because that's a decent chunk of the economy going on there. Pebble, for a while, was the largest crowdfunding victory, you could say. They raised over $10 million for the first smartwatch, which really was kind of the first watch to connect via Bluetooth to phones of its kind. And so they said, we don't want to go through, these giant tech companies. We have an idea for a product that we can do ourselves, that we can make it better. We just need the money to produce it. And they did so successfully. But more recently, I heard about this campaign. I don't know if any of you are gamers, but apparently there's a game called Star Citizen that has immense popularity and has raised over $124 million for its video game. Now, that is just unfathomable to me, but it does show the breadth of what crowdfunding can do. But let's get into the details, into the meat of how you can succeed if you have an idea that you think you should be able to crowdfund. First thing I would say above everything else is that you need to build a team. A lot of entrepreneurs are just that. They're entrepreneurs. They're by themselves. They think that they can do it all themselves. They're driven. They're motivated, which is good, but it's really hard to see clearly all of the things that go into a crowdfunding campaign as the entrepreneur yourself. First of all, you have to admit that you don't know everything. If you have an idea for a cool product, chances are you don't know everything that goes around the marketing, the distribution, the fundraising, everything. So you should build a team that has complementary skills to what you have. But second of all, there's just simply a sheer shortage of time. You don't have time to do everything, at least not well, when you're crowdfunding. Because most of the time, people will be crowdfunding when they have a full-time job or they have another part-time job, and they can't dedicate 40, 60, 80 hours a week to the project. When that's the case, you need help because there's just not enough time to do it well. I mean, you got to think about product development if you're developing a physical product. There's manufacturing to figure out what happens after the campaign. How do I get things lined up? There's social media, which is an entire beast of its own. People tend to think, oh, I can throw up a Facebook page and kind of let it grow organically, and suddenly my product's so cool, I'm going to have thousands and thousands of followers and likes and fans just, naturally. That's not how it works, especially now. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they have really pivoted into a way that they can control what goes in and out of people's news feeds, and if you're not paying them to have that access, you're not going to get it. So social media really doesn't grow that organically anymore. It takes time and it takes effort. And in my opinion, that takes a full one person dedicated to that task, in addition to everything else that's going on. But then you even have to consider public relations and press, because the most successful crowdfunding campaigns, again, people don't just stumble across them on the internet. Most people don't Google, where's a crowdfunding campaign that I can throw my money at? They see it and they have to be told of its benefit before they're willing to spend money on it. And so a lot of the way that happens with the most successful campaigns is they do outreach to reporters. They get articles written about them. They get lots and lots of press build up before the campaign so that people have heard of it, and then it's a quicker way to buy it when the campaign launches. And that itself is a full-time job too. Then you've got a product page, video that you'll need to do if you want to show how your product is used, photography. Email is huge too. The best way to gather a customer base before you've actually started selling is to gather people's emails so that you can market to them directly. Studies have shown that email is the has the best conversion rate over social media, over everything else. People respond to email calls to action better than anything else. But really, there's more and more and more that goes into these crowdfunding campaigns, especially if you want it to be polished and especially if you want to feel prepared going into it. People can throw these things together, and sometimes they work, but especially the more money you want to ask for, the less and less of a reach you'll have without doing all of these things. It's given on Indiegogo that teams with 4 or more people as administrators raise 72% more in projects with just one team member. So that goes to show more people really does increase your odds of success. And if you're worried about money, if you say, I don't have the money to pay a full team of people, that's easy. Offer your team a percentage of whatever you raise. Especially with Indiegogo, if you don't raise everything, then you don't get to keep the money you raised. that way. You can say, hey, if we reach our goal of $10,000, you get to keep X percentage of it. And then if we don't raise it, then you don't get anything because I don't get anything either. And that provides both incentives, and yet it's also a lower risk for you and for your potential company. Number two, I would say assess your position first. So a lot of people, as soon as they have an idea, they'll think crowdfunding is the way to go. That's right for me. Let's do it. But I would say hold on before you make that judgment and ask yourself, why are you crowdfunding? What reason is that the best channel for you? Do you need cash up front? Do you absolutely need that in order to succeed? Or are there other methods of raising funds? Because again, kind of like adding on an investor at the beginning, which ties you down, crowdfunding isn't risk-free either, because suddenly instead of one person to please or three people to please, you potentially have hundreds, if not thousands of people to please, and there's a risk that you'll make hundreds, if not thousands of potential customers unhappy if you don't meet their expectations. So there is risk involved. So ask yourself, why are you doing it? Do you actually need it? And then finally, do you have a budget? This is something that people tend to skim over because they say, I'm trying to raise money, not spend money. But there's a quote I like to say, I think it's by Warren Buffett, but if you want to build a small fortune, you have to start with a large fortune. So basically, it takes money to make money, and especially with crowdfunding campaigns, if you don't have at least some money set aside to pay for social media ads, pay for Google ads, to pay somebody to do a professional video, those kinds of things. If you don't have that budget set aside, your campaign is going to look like it was made out of a college dorm room, and while that sounds impressive, that's not a good thing for customers to see. So if you want your campaign to look good, if you want it to act like $1 million company when you're not, then you need to have at least some sort of budget. Third, do your research. So again, a lot of people, they'll come up with an idea, they'll say, this is golden, I can't believe nobody's ever thought of this, let's go. But quite honestly, does your product suck? Do you know? If it's your baby, you're not going to be able to be the best one to answer that question. You need to ask people what they think of your product. You need to ask them how they value your product. If they think your product is worth $10 and you think it's worth $100, there's going to be some gap when you launch a campaign, and suddenly nobody's willing to pay for $100, even if they told you they liked it from the beginning. And that leads to the next thing I'll say is do more research. Talk to more people. You can never have enough research to back up why you're doing what you're doing. And again, don't ask, would you buy this? Because chances are you're asking your friends, you're asking people you know face to face, and there's the social pressure to say, yeah, I think I'd buy that. But ask them more vague questions about, how do you currently do this? How do you solve this problem? Do you have a solution to it? Does that process work well for you? And then you can get into, here's a solution. What would you be willing to pay for this? And if their answer is aligned with your answer, great, you can move forward. But a lot of the times people will not value your product as highly as you do because for that specific reason, it's yours. Of course you think it's valuable. But there needs to be a continual process of validation to see whether people agree with you and whether people think it's worth spending money on. If you do that research and find out, you know what, they don't value it as much as I do and that's not a sustainable product, then you're saving yourself the months, for one, of work to run a crowdfunding campaign and potentially disaster in running one that could ruin your hopes of running a successful campaign or introducing the product. So always do more research. Finally, plan ahead. So a lot of people, again, will look at their launch date for their campaign and they'll start there and they'll move forward. But they don't realize how much has to go in beforehand. And so again, you read that list of all the things that need to be done to operate a successful crowdfunding campaign. If you do that, say, a week after you've already launched, it's too late. There's research to show that I think 50% of successful campaigns on Indiegogo raise more than half their funds in the first 48 hours. So if somebody comes to your campaign page and sees that you've only raised, say, 1% of your goal after 5 days, they're going to say, this campaign is going to fail and I'm not going to give it my money. So that first 48 hours is huge for your campaign, which means you need to start building and need to start growing your team and your brand and everything to go along with it weeks, if not months in advance. And that's a question we'll be able to ask our speakers in a little bit about how much they prepared. But again, you've got these things like building a team, taking photos, launching your social media channels and giving them time to grow, giving people time to see and learn what your product is about. And then there's email and more email and more email of reaching out to people, waiting for responses, and continually reaching out via email, PR. If you're going to run a giveaway for your products to raise interest and get emails, that's a good idea too, but that all requires time and lots of time before you actually start your campaign and run through the end before you can celebrate. Number 6, have a backup. I don't know if anyone has seen any stories about the Coolest Cooler, but it's kind of the notorious example of a crowdfunding campaign gone bad. They boasted a really cool product with Bluetooth capabilities and speakers and can opener and everything involved in kind of the manliest cooler possible. And I think they ended up producing some of them, but they raised millions of dollars and then ended up not able to fulfill their orders, and they kind of led their customers on this wild goose chase of saying it's coming, and then it never came. So always have a backup, have a contingency plan. What if you fail? What if you can't fulfill your orders? How are you going to handle that, and will your company crumble? If not, will your own financial future crumble if you can't do that? But sometimes the bigger question is, what if you succeed? Did you get enough money? Do you have enough money to actually fulfill your orders and fulfill your obligations to the campaign? If not, you're in even more trouble potentially. And the thing to remember, especially if you're a student running a campaign, is nobody's going to babysit you here. Nobody from Kickstarter or Indiegogo is going to make sure that you're making smart decisions. This is on your own, and this is your own risk, and this is your own investment that could very well fail and go wrong. And if you don't have a backup, you may find yourself in a very, very difficult situation. But final notes, again, it's a challenge, but expect to have fun. The crowdfunding campaign that I specifically was a part of was some of the most fun I've had in a long time. Being a part of something new, something brand new that's never been done before, and kind of building it from the ground up can be a really exciting and fun process. But at the same time, expect it to be a challenge. I found I was only, for the most part, doing marketing and social media for it, and it felt like a full-time job, if not, at the very least, a half-time job, to manage it all and do my due diligence to make sure that it was succeeding. So expect it to be fun, but expect it to be some long nights, long hours, making sure that you're doing everything you need to. So here's some places to get started. If you've got an idea, if you know someone that has an idea, start by browsing through Kickstarter and Indiegogo right now. They've often got projects that are succeeding really well right now, or ones that are really popular, and you can see what they've done, how they've structured their campaigns, check out their social media pages, what they've done, how many people they have, and that gives you a really good idea of this recipe for success. But potentially more valuable than that is number 2, read more about the campaigns that have failed. Look into articles people have written about why their campaigns failed, because that will tell you more about things to avoid. And honestly, there is kind of a tricky thing with crowdfunding campaigns that's really a little bit misleading, because a lot of large companies will introduce a new product on Kickstarter or on Indiegogo as kind of a minimal risk test run to say, we've developed this product, let's see if people will buy it. And, worst case, they say they don't want to buy it, and then we don't have to, waste the money on distributing it. So there are some misleading things that look like there are all these people in their basements that are introducing these products and raising millions of dollars, when you, what you can't see is that there is a lot more money behind those projects than you have or than you know about. So read more of the campaigns that have failed and learn what they did wrong. Third, talk to at least one person who's done a campaign before. This is a good opportunity. Talk to us, reach out to people who have run them. They'll be able to give you a good idea of what to expect. And finally, I say talk to at least 10 people about your idea. It could be more, it could be a little less, but again, you don't know if your product, if your idea is bad until someone else tells you. And talk to people that aren't your mom and dad. Talk to people that you don't know that will be okay telling you it's a bad idea. Because again, of course you think it's a good idea, you're the one that came up with it. But that can save you a lot of headache in the long run. So I think now's a good time. We're going to start with a few questions that we've prepared. But if anyone out there has questions related to crowdfunding, again, there's the Q&A tab on the chat window, if you can find it. Feel free to submit some questions there, and we'll get to them when we can. But let me see if our panelists are there. Steve, are you there? We might have lost him for a second. We'll see if he can call in. What about Callie? Can you hear anything? All right, we've been having some audio issues anyway. So it looks like Callie can hear, but she doesn't have a microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call her in, and she can talk through my mic. But anyway, our first question, again, while you guys are thinking, is going to be one: how did you promote your campaign? So Callie, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? All right, sounds good. So promotions, I really just use social media. A lot of people that I've talked to who have run more successful campaigns than mine collected an email list of thousands of people before they launched their campaign, and so that's definitely what I recommend, because the campaigns that you see tens of thousands of dollars being donated to or being funded into definitely do more than just their own social media channels. I tried to reach out to a lot of blogs as well, but I just didn't leave enough preparation time with doing that.
Do you think that you could have raised more money if you had spent more time or dedicated more effort to that?
Yeah, definitely, because now that I am published, like my company and my product is published a little bit in some blogs and some articles, whatever, there's definitely a lot more outreach. And so there would have been more funds, or like more people that weren't in my network donating to my campaign.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So I think that leads well into the next question of like how much pre-campaign planning, one, did you do? You might have said that already, but if not, what did you do? What would you recommend?
So I gave myself about 4 months before I launched my campaign. So I started working 4 months before I launched my campaign, but I planned to launch it within 2 months, but I just couldn't make it happen. So you really need to give yourself more time than you expect. But I spent most of that time, because I know Ethan was talking a lot before about having a big budget going into your crowdfunding campaign, or some sort of budget for video, social media, promoting, graphics, etc. But I actually ended up doing all of my graphics and video myself. So I didn't really have a big budget. So that's really what my 4 months went into. It was all of the like kind of that kind of stuff, and then also figuring out manufacturing for my product and working on perfecting the design, as well as the story, because I did want to touch on as being a really important part is the story, because you have this campaign and it's not just kind of to put any product out there. You have to have like a really compelling story behind why you have this product, why it's innovative, why people should buy it on this kind of platform where they go to buy innovative products.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Callie, I did my best, but can you share a little bit more about what the mudra is, and maybe that can kind of explain how you developed this story?
Yeah, sure. So the mudra is a piece of acupressure jewelry. So it applies pressure to a pressure point on your hand. So when you wear it, it relieves like a breadth of symptoms like headaches, anxiety, stress. It helps with circulation and kind of calming people down. So that's what I based a lot of my story around. But I did have to be careful to not make any medical claims, of course. And so it was kind of just like a story about health and wellness and jewelry and yoga and so on.
Did you find that there was kind of an odd matchup, because these platforms, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, are often seen as kind of tech gadgety platforms, like here's a new Bluetooth speaker or whatever. Did you find, since yours was jewelry, that it was harder to find customers, or did you not experience that?
Yeah, probably. I definitely think that these platforms lend themselves to more tech startups, but I also think that everything these days lends themselves to more tech startup type of thing. So I just kind of like to go against those stereotypes or boundaries, and you just have to do your thing. So if you have a product that doesn't have tech or Bluetooth or I don't know, anything like that, it doesn't mean it's not innovative. It doesn't mean you can't use the platform. It certainly can.
Absolutely.
I think, I also,
yeah, go ahead.
Just a side note, I wanted to, just a quick, little recommendation is, there's a class at my school that I noticed people were doing. It's like a Kickstarter class, and I realized that within the first 2 weeks of the class, everyone has to submit like a 1-week Kickstarter project. And if you just want to get familiar with the platform and don't really care about like the product that you're putting out, you can put out like a really simple $100 goal campaign, and you can just kind of get familiar with how it works and make something little. Obviously, don't make a Bluetooth tech gadget. You can just make like a postcard or something like that, and just kind of do it for like your family and see just how the platform works.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because a lot of the things that you end up finding difficulty doing are just because it was your first time and it took you longer to do it than you expected. I imagine you would say that if you decide to do a crowdfunding campaign again, that it will be a lot easier and you'll know where to start, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm just doing the small little one coming up in like a week or two, just for fun with some of my friends, and it's literally like bing, bang, boom, you know how to do it, you know what's up, you can just launch it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as, I mean, obviously that's a small one. That's not if you're like trying to reach a really large goal and need to get a lot of emails out, blogs, and this and that.
Yeah. So it looks like Steve lost his connection. So we're going to stick with you, Callie. But we got a question. How do you make sure your story is short and sweet and compelling for a Kickstarter video and not bore people to death? Did you have anything to speak to that?
Yeah, a lot of editing and a lot of revising, and you kind of just have to constantly, like every day I would work on it. So like every day you go back to it, you take out a sentence, like you make it more and more concise, but have a lot of people read it, because I realized that the first time I had people read it, some people were like, this is too much information. Even though it was pretty short and sweet, they're like, this is just kind of going over my head. So like you have to have a lot of different people that you trust. Like I had Ethan, I'm pretty sure he read mine and gave me feedback. Katie, another person from Future Founders. Then I had a teacher. I had my parents. I had friends. Like, a lot of different angles of people willing to read it in order to make sure it's like at this, like where it needs to be. But also something really important that I realized is everyone will watch the video and 30% of people will read your whole story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And especially like with yours, especially where it's, I mean, it's not techie, it's not gadgety, but it is new. And like I had never heard of the pressure point kind of idea. And so if you had gone into the, exact details of how it worked and everything, like that's more than I need to know. All I need to know is that it's a piece of jewelry, that this is how it looks and this is how it makes you feel better.
Yeah, and I would say graphics in between like every main point in your story, add a graphic that will be like a visual indicator.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking from experience on my behalf, so the campaign that I was a part of was the Noonie toaster. It was a tortilla toaster. There's never been a tortilla toaster before, apparently, and so this guy invented a toaster specifically for tortillas. But the video we made, we did our best to make it on a budget, and so we rented cameras, we set it up in this guy's living room, and did it ourselves. And looking backward, like it wasn't horrible. It was kind of cool, but at the same time, it was definitely not a professional video. And I think people could see that, and that does a lot to remove people's confidence from the value of a product. So making sure you've got a good, short, sweet video that's also looking professional is really important. With a follow-up question to that, Callie, the question, how do you make a good video on a budget? Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, the video definitely caused me like a lot of, I wouldn't say anxiety, because that's silly, but like it's difficult to be a good videographer and be a good editor and figure out what exactly you want your video to be about, or like how you want to structure it by yourself. It really was difficult for me, and I like my video, but I'm not obsessed with it. So I really kind of would recommend trying to find like someone who makes commercials or who is working with like some sort of like advertising or branding to at least give you some advice. And then if you want to do it yourself, like go for it, because it's totally doable. I know a lot of people who have done it, and I think an important thing is to use a really high definition camera so at least it can look professional. And then also just like keep editing it down. No one wants to watch a video probably more than 3 minutes on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. But one more thing is if you're not I'm not a professional videographer or so I tried to make it look really good, but I didn't try to make it look like a professional commercial, because then it's not gonna, and then, I don't know, you're just gonna look silly. Like, instead embrace the fact that you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I mean, looking professional is extremely important, but at the same time, there is, this personal touch that people know you're not, a big company, and that makes them want to support you because they know they're not throwing money at some big corporate machine, but they're throwing money at a person who, has this idea that they believe in. And so making it look nice and polished and adding credibility to your story, but in a way that doesn't take away from your personal touch is important.
Yeah, I focused a lot on the process in my video because visually that just seems like such a cool aspect of my product. And that was like something that helped me with like putting together clips, is just like using like the craftsmanship and process videos.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question, just generally, Callie, what cautions would you give to someone who wants to start a campaign? Like what things, I mean, maybe some that I've covered, maybe some that I haven't, what things are there that you think someone should know about before they say, I'm going to go make $1 million on Kickstarter?
It's harder than it seems. campaigns that blow up randomly, but that's kind of starting to happen less and less, I think, now that big corporations or big companies are starting to use this crowdfunding platform and they have, like, a lot of money to put into it. But I would say be ambitious with your goal, but make sure you can reach it. And also, you're going to want to, like, kind of reach it within the first half of your campaign, so at least it looks like you have momentum. That's, like, a big thing. But then I would say the biggest thing to be careful of is to make sure that your profit margin is, like, large enough just in case when you actually come to manufacture or make your product that you're not losing money. So, like, also one thing that I wish that I, like, messed up on kind of is your Kickstarter and Indiegogo price is supposed to be lower than what your price is when you go to market. And so the price of my product on market is $120. And on Kickstarter or on Indiegogo, it was $120. Because I'm at the point right now where I like couldn't mark my prices up, or I feel like I wouldn't have as many people buying them. And on Kickstarter, I couldn't have made it lower because that's, like, the price that I need to make my profit margin. So you should always, like really plan for how much your product is going to cost to make, and then add some.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and even, I mean, just consumer psychology-wise, as soon as you introduce a price and associate it with the product or with the service, it's really hard to increase that price without alienating your customers, because there's a lot of brain psychology that goes on when you associate a price with a product, and you're willing to let it go down, but letting it go up, suddenly you'll feel like you're getting ripped off or taken advantage of. And that is a real danger with crowdfunding campaigns, which is something to note. But I do like what you said. It's harder than it looks, and that is absolutely 100% true. It is, and something that, you know, goes along with talking to people who have done these campaigns before is asking them if your goal, if your financial goal is achievable. Callie, I think your goal was 9,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
So yours was 9,000. For the Noonie toaster, our goal was 100,000, and so it was significantly larger. And yet we raised about the same amount of money. We only raised like $10,000, which obviously was not meeting our goal, and so we couldn't do it. But there are basically hard numbers where if you have a certain number of emails in your email list or a certain number of connections, you can kind of count on making however much money. And the people at Kickstarter, the people at Indiegogo know those numbers. They've got a ton of data to work with. And often their staff, their advisors will tell you, hey, you've only got 1,300 emails, you've only got this many followers on Facebook and Twitter. We think you can raise potentially $10,000 and no more. And our team heard those cautions at the beginning, and we said, no, you know what? We're bigger than that. We're better than that. Like they don't get the product. They don't get how big a success it's going to be, and they were almost spot on with how much money we were going to raise. So definitely knowing it's harder than it looks is important, but that's not a reason to not do it. That's a reason to right size, to make sure that what you're asking for is achievable. So another question, what's the hardest part after the campaign ends and is already funded, Callie?
Oh, I would say definitely getting the product out on time.
Getting them out on time.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to give people a date that 3 months after they pay for something and they still don't have it. So, like, I have a friend who we both, not to throw her under the bus or anything, she's amazing and doing great. But we launched our campaigns at the same time and both reached our goal and have, like, then she came back to Chicago, which is where we both live, and all my stuff was out on time, which is really how it should be with a crowdfunding campaign. And she was like, "Oh, I haven't even started pushing my manufacturers to make the products and get them out there." And now she's still struggling to get all of her products out. And she's getting emails from people like, "Where's my ring? Where is it?" And that's just a position you really don't want to put yourself in.
Yeah, again, if you end up promising something that you can't deliver on, that ends up alienating your customers, who will be hopefully your return customers and will spread the word about you. But if they don't have a good experience, then you might as well say goodbye to your early adopters, and you're going to have to start over finding new customers who don't have that experience with you. So that's really important.
Yeah.
Another question: do you have a favorite crowdfunding campaign that you've seen, Callie?
Yeah, I have a lot of favorites. I'll tell you about two that I just recently saw. So one of them is the fidget cube. It's I think it's over now. I'm not sure if it's live or not still, but it's a recent one, and it's absolutely amazing. You guys should definitely go look at it. It's just a little cube that this team made that has all these different sides on it you can fidget with. Who doesn't love fidgeting? And it's something so simple. They're making so much money. You have to look at it. And then, I'm not going to say this is a favorite, but this is the recent one that one of my professors just launched a few days ago, so I'll give a little plug in also. But it's about the campaign. So he's making a book that's just every single thing transcribed from Trump and every single thing transcribed from Hillary, word for word, just what they say. It's only their words, none of the media involved. And I think that's a really interesting way to use the platform as well. Again, not something really tech or tech oriented, but it's definitely something that's really current and people are really interested in right now. So I'm curious to see how we'll do.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, that's really cool. I supported a Kickstarter campaign not too long ago. There's an internet comic called Cyanide and Happiness, and it's kind of a goofy little simple digital comic. But the creators of that came out with a card game where they split each tile of a comic into different cards, and it's kind of like the game Apples to Apples, if you've ever played it, where different players lay down different panels to a comic, and then you assemble them together to make one 3-panel comic strip. And it's really fun. But these guys and girls, I think it was both, basically used their platform of this massive social media following because of their comics, and use that to market to them and email them and sell it on social media. And they raised, I think, $3 million or something. I think they were only trying to raise 100 or 200 or something, but they through the roof raised way more money than they needed. But something that I thought was interesting, and speaking to your comment, Callie, about getting products out on time, I was at Target the other day, and I still haven't gotten my order yet. I haven't gotten the game that I ordered 5 months ago. But I was at Target the other day, and they were selling that game there. And so as a buyer on Kickstarter, that really frustrated me because I had, supported the product, helped it, come to life almost 6 months ago. And here it was in a retail store, which either they used my money to, put it in stores before I got it, or they didn't need my money in the first place, and they were just using it as a sales channel again. And so, I don't personally care because it's a great game and I want to play it, but it was this sense of feeling like I did them a favor, but they were really deceiving me, and that didn't feel good. And so that's something to be careful of too.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do one final question, and it doesn't look like Steve's going to make it on here, which is a shame, but I know he would have had good answers to all these too. But fourth one, what surprised you most about running this campaign? Was it how fun it was? Was it how hard it was? What was the biggest surprise?
That's a good one. Probably how, to be honest, frustrating it was. Out of all my experiences with starting this company, Collegiate Design, I would say launching my Indiegogo campaign was the most frustrating. But you just keep having to I took the semester off of school last semester and solely dedicated my time to launching this campaign, and I worked every single day, every single weekend, and it's you run into so many speed bumps, and you just have to be ready for that. And it's now I look back and I'm I learned so much, and I really did have so much fun with it. I was running around Chicago every single day, trying to get things done, and but it was frustrating. You have to wake up every single day and just take it as a beautiful challenge, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually plan to launch on Kickstarter because personally I just think Kickstarter is a cleaner platform visually, and I'm a very visual person. But I submitted it to Kickstarter finally 2 months after I wanted to one day, and the next day it got back to me and they were we can't launch this on Kickstarter. Kickstarter doesn't want any product associated with medical, anything medical. And I was I make no claims, whatever. Fought them for a day, and they were no. So I was all right, I'm going to Indiegogo. So I transferred everything to Indiegogo and submitted the next day. But that was the easiest speed bump in the road. But still, it never really ends. But it's great.
Yeah, it never really ends, but it's great. I think that's probably the best way. Go ahead.
If anyone, it's kind of weird if I'm talking just evening, but if anyone on this video or webinar has any questions based off of anything we talked about today or anything else specifically towards themselves, I'm definitely really open to answering any questions.
Yeah, for sure. And we can, if you have questions for Callie or want to meet Stephen, my contact information will be at the end of this, or you could go to futurefounders.com and we'll get you set up with her contact information. But great, thanks Callie, and thanks Stephen for trying to be here. But thank you so much for your advice and all that stuff. But real quickly before we go, I want to let everybody go. Hopefully, right at 2 o'clock, let you get on with your lives. But again, this is the beginning of a series. Actually, there are going to be several webinars between Future Founders, Self-Employment in the Arts, and the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. So definitely keep an eye out. There will be more of these, and we're excited to bring those to you. And finally, just a little bit about each one. So Self-Employment in the Arts, a great way to get involved is to go to Facebook and just type in the search bar SEA Mastermind, and you'll come up with their Facebook group, which is a really cool way if you're a creative, if you're artistic, or even if you're just looking to start your own business. It's a really cool group where you can get feedback from other people, share encouragement, share motivational things, all kinds of those things. And then you'll learn a lot about them and how they can help you from that Facebook group. And then finally, CEO. So the CEO is the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. They are having their national conference in just a few weeks. That's in Tampa, Florida, from October 27th to 29th. And Future Founders will actually be there. So myself, and then if you are familiar with us, Katie and Scott will all be there. We'll have our own table. We'll be around. So definitely, if you're going to be in Tampa, come say hi. If not, definitely check it out. It's a really cool opportunity. And you can learn more about that at ceo.org, which is listed right there. Really great opportunity for entrepreneurs and especially student entrepreneurs to connect, network, get together, and really help each other out. And finally, I said a little bit about this earlier, but our pitch competition, U.PITCH, the elevator pitch competition is coming up. October 20th is the deadline to apply. The actual event is on November 10th. So if you don't have any idea but want to attend, definitely reach out. You can find more about that on our website too, or reaching out to me. But definitely let your friends, let your teams, whoever know about U.PITCH. It's going to be a great opportunity to win some money for your startup. Finally, if you have any questions, find me on LinkedIn, Ethan Adams. There's my email, our company Twitter handle. That's how you can find us on Instagram too, and then Facebook as well. So feel free to reach out, ask questions, share feedback. And finally, thanks for coming. We're glad you've been here, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. Thanks, everyone.